In the headlines.
Atlassian has announced the end of life of server. Teams all over the world are searching for the next step. Double Platinum solution partner ClearVision is helping them decide which route to take. Data center and cloud migrations are being delivered by ClearVision's vetted and supported Atlassian contractor service, ClearHub, with a risk-free guarantee. Hop in, no matter your geographical location. We'll get you to your destination.
So imagine this. You're part of a project to re-transform your business. You're going to re-architect all your core systems, and you're going to plot this bold, glorious new future for your business. You rally your teammates, you get together your best technical minds, you put together this amazing plan forward about how you're going to use technology to transform the business. You get in front of an executive, you lay out your plan, you pitch it, and the response you get is, so what? This is a really uncomfortable position to be in. I'm Kent, a senior manager at Atlassian. I've been so whatted before. I love delivering technology and I love delivering value to our customers, but sometimes it's really hard to map the two, especially in the early stages of planning or design. To help us with this problem, I've enlisted the help of Brad and Phil, who are enterprise business architects. They've got a few tools in their toolbox, particularly the value chain, which we're going to leverage to help me with this problem. So to get started, Phil, where can we get started?
Thanks, Kent. I'm here today to talk to you about a tool that we use called the value chain. And before I get into that, I just want to make sure that you know that you're not alone in being so whatted before. I as well have been so whatted plenty of times in my career. One of the times more recently that comes to mind is back in October when we presented a future state sort of technology vision to our chief revenue officer, Cameron. And as you might expect where this is going, the first thing that he gave us when we finished our pitch was, so what does this get me? And in that case, I was lucky to have a strong business partner behind me to bail me out. But needless to say, it was not a particularly comfortable situation. However, the little bit of comfort I did get out of that is just knowing how focused on value that our leaders are, so that we're in good hands here at Atlassian. So let's crack into the framework itself and start to paint a picture for you, Kent. So really at its heart, a value chain is a way to bound a problem in business context as opposed to technology context. So really starting with the business first. And we do that using a pretty standard process model. These process models have been around seemingly forever, a pretty consistent sort of hierarchical decomposition of that business context. And you'll see that articulated here on the page on the left. In some cases, you may find that in your organization, it's useful to name these levels of decomposition. So in the case here, you'll see process area is listed as our level 1, which then decomposes into a process group, and then ultimately a business process at level 3. However, we found that we like to kind of take a shortcut around giving formal names to these levels by just calling them what they are, level 1, level 2, level 3, or even for short, L1, L2, or L3. This is a great way to know immediately sort of where you are in the context of the framework without having to translate in an additional term to kind of know where you are in the map. Now, one of the challenges that some folks run into when they're building out these models is knowing when to stop. As you start to decompose your business into these terms, it can get kind of comfortable to go down into the details, so say level 4 or even level 5. However, what we've found in practice at Atlassian is that sweet spot really exists more closer to that level 3. Once you get beyond that point, you'll start to see maybe different tools or different artifacts that play a little bit better in describing that level of depth of your business. Maybe something like a business process flow or a flowchart diagram. So in our example today, we'll sort of stick with that sweet spot and take it down to level 3. Now, you'll probably see the only rule that we've really put forth here is one to maintain that hierarchy. So sort of keeping all of these concepts organized with like, or in buckets, if you will. One other rule that we had considered when we'd started on this journey was whether or not we'd want to adopt, say, a mutually exclusive or collectively exhaustive rule. This is a rule that often shows up in these types of architecture or business frameworks that can be useful to make sure that you're not repeating a concept more than once. However, what we found in practice is that, with not having all of the concepts sort of on the page in the frame and sort of requiring your customer, your reader to be aware of where, say, a shared concept is or something that they didn't want to repeat can almost be cumbersome for your customer. So we've decided to take that MECE rule, throw it right out the window, and we have no qualms about repeating a process as long as it makes sense in the context of the problem you're trying to solve. So let's drill into our example a little bit more and paint a sort of a more illustrative picture for you. So carrying forward our issue to resolution example, we've established that really as the boundaries of the scope of our problem. Now, I'd mentioned that before, and this is really critical. It's very important to set clear boundaries up front to avoid that you don't bite off more than you can chew, or you wind up, say, boiling the ocean and trying to decompose too much. So those initial boundaries are really critical to make sure that you're set up for success here. Now, you see issue to resolution here in sort of a common taxonomy of, say, X to Y. And this is something that we've also employed at Atlassian consistently to make sure that those boundaries are clear in the name of the chain. Now, you may see, say, other organizations that take a more functional approach, but we've found the, say, issue to resolution naming convention to be a lot more intuitive. So we recommend that. And even if you're not, say, a customer support professional, like this example alludes to, these value chains can certainly work for you regardless of the function that you might support. So for example, if you're a finance professional, you may find that a value chain like record to report or procure to pay would be relevant to some problems that you're facing in your organization. Or if you're in sales or commerce, quote to cash has become almost an industry standard these days. So that's one that we also employ here. And you can break that down further, say to quote to order and order to cash if you so choose. And even if you're a product professional trying to improve how you deliver your products and improve the product lifecycle, you may find a value chain like new concept to production might work for the problems that you're trying to solve. So it really goes to say that the framework is intended to be flexible and malleable to the problems that you're facing. So going beyond this level 1 concept, let's start to think through how the level 2s might show up. So in this case, we've drawn out a number of links to the chain that help to illustrate the different types of work or different steps that we take in delivering value in issue to resolution. Now, a couple of patterns are going to emerge once you get into level 2, and you'll find that some may be more relevant to your context than others. Now, the first pattern that we generally see is some sort of sequence or flow, right? Step 1 to step 2 to step 3 type of articulation. And you'll see that here in our example as we're referring to the work we do on tickets. The second pattern that often emerges is a standalone or cross-cutting type of link or level 2. And that might be applicable, say, to that entire ticket workflow. So something like manage workforce, where you're managing that workforce across those links of the chain. Another example in that case could be something like manage SLA. You may have specific processes on how you measure and report back on those metrics. The third pattern is really just the mashup of the two, and that's what we found in practice is most common. You'll have a mix of some flow or some sequential items, as well as some standalone items to sort of bring the whole context into the frame. Now, as you probably expect where this is going, we take each of those level 2s and we decompose them further into their subsequent pieces and parts to really finish painting the picture and making sure that the scope or the context from business terms is now clear in frame, and you can start to use that with other concepts or other techniques to start to get a little bit more out of the framework. For example, you could map in IT concepts like your systems or your data. That way you're anchored in business context, but bringing in those technology context on top to sort of complete that view. In addition, we can also tie in value as well, which is probably why you're here. So Kent, does that at least help to get you started in your understanding of the framework itself and sort of how to go about building one of these out?
Yeah, it does actually. I think this will help me slice and dice the business. I can set context. I'm speaking a common language. So I get it. I can use this to organize my thoughts and organize my work. But what's still not quite clear to me is how this maps to value. Like, how do I know a specific box on this is a valuable thing?
I think I can answer how we apply value to this for you. I'm Brad Sellier, and thanks for joining our talk. Just like Phil and Kent, I've also been so whatted, and it's not very fun. I remember being part of a team presenting IT's roadmap in support of a complete business transformation to the CFO. And we really were geeking out on the different types of capabilities and advanced experiences we are going to enable for our customers. And at the end of it, the CFO really wanted to understand, so what? What's the value that I'm going to get out of this? And unfortunately, I didn't have a great answer for that. I was talking in broad terms such as speed to market and differentiated experiences, and he really wanted to know what the actual business metrics and value impact that would have to revenue and membership, et cetera. So I left that discussion. We regrouped as a team, and I was able to understand how we can apply value chains to our concept and to how we wanted to articulate the value of our roadmap and capabilities. So we reorganized and we repitched, and it went a lot better this time. I was able to tie everything back into the pro forma that was created and actually show how distinct changes within IT delivered different types of business impact and the impact on those metrics and value. So as you can tell, value can be one of the hardest things for companies to articulate. I often struggle with it myself. That's why value chains as a framework is easy to anchor on for me, because it always reminds me that I need to focus on what the value is. By themselves, however, value chains won't tell you what the value is. You do have to do some work to get there. To that end, one of the first things I like to do is understand within each of my value chain boxes, which operational and key performance metrics can I tag to those boxes. Once I have that, I know that changes I make within that box are likely to impact those operational metrics and key performance metrics. The example we have here, taking our issue to resolution space, is breaking that down into how we triage tickets and ultimately route tickets to a team. What I've done is I've taken 3 of our metrics and I've tied them into our routing ticket. I looked at what routing ticket is trying to accomplish and which metrics are really impacted by how we route tickets. If we are able to route tickets very quickly, I can increase my initial response time because it's getting to a support person much quicker. Ultimately, that also impacts our mean time to resolution. And then further along the lines, as we look at key performance metrics, I know that that impacts our customer satisfaction score. If we're responding to our customers more quickly, we can ultimately determine that they will be more satisfied with how quickly we've done that. So we can tie operational metrics back to our key performance metrics, and that is super critical into how we understand how value is ultimately delivered. So now that we've done some initial mapping of metrics to our value chain, I want to walk you through a scenario on how to help articulate how value chains can help you in your business transformation. So imagine you're a business leader in a support organization. Through some careful analysis and research, your company has found that a major reason why churn and retention rate is below industry is because the current support experience is lacking. You are now tasked with transforming your business to positively impact churn and retention. Now, first of all, this is a wonderful goal because it gives you insight into the type of value you should be delivering as compared to what you're doing today. Today, your support organization is viewed as a cost center, focused on throughput and cost to serve. Tomorrow, your support organization should be customer experience and outcomes focused, as there is a direct correlation between customer satisfaction scores and churn rate. So your hypothesis is that delivering on experience and outcomes will positively impact customer satisfaction scores and in turn, churn and retention. So there we can see the clear line between how changes we make within our support center impacts our ultimate goal of churn and rate through customer satisfaction scores. And so now, since you know the value that you're trying to deliver, you can come up with a good strategy to deliver upon it. A simple example of how you may apply that is as you look to how you manage your SLAs today. You're primarily focused today on throughput and how quickly you can close tickets. Tomorrow, your SLAs may actually be more outcomes and quality focused because you want the experience to be outstanding. Now, I do realize that rarely a support organization focuses on only one value proposition, cost to serve or experience and outcomes. Usually, they're pulling both value levers.
Yeah, I think it does help. So I could take one of these specific things like route ticket, and I can map it to a direct business impact or a value metric. But in the end, it still feels like I've got a fancy diagram. I mean, I do have some common language, but How do I make it real? How do I bring it into my day-to-day?
Yeah, I can help you answer that, Kent. So at Atlassian, we've got a number of tools in our toolbox that are well suited for this problem. Now, if you want to start and go quick and dirty, a Confluence page with a table on it, a couple of your closest colleagues is a great way to get started. However, to your point, Kent, that only leaves you with more of that fancy diagram type of an outcome. So for today's example, we're going to pick on Trello as our tool of choice for this use case. So what you'll see here is that value chain that we just walked you through, that example of issue to resolution, really produced in Trello as the tool. The best way to get started here, really, spin up a board and title it with the value chain that you're going after. So those boundaries that I'd mentioned before, step number one. From there, you can start to decompose that value chain into its composite pieces and parts. And we find Trello really useful for this in its ability to sort of manage that hierarchy really flexibly. So for our level twos, or those links of the chain, we'll add lists to indicate as columns that we can move left to right or back and forth. Within each of those lists, we'll bring in those independent business processes that we're looking to impact as cards. And from there, you found that slide or that table in the Confluence page is now a pretty robust and dynamic artifact on which you can do some interesting slicing and dicing. Now, to bring the value story home here, I'm going to kick it back to Brad, and he'll walk us through an example of just how we do that.
So we've got our Trello board set up, as Phil mentioned. The constructs are there, but we still need to do some mapping. So to do that end, we set up some labels as key value measures that we want to track. Right now, we have 4 of them. Mean time to resolution, initial response time, customer satisfaction, as that's our ultimate goal for this transformation to impact churn, and bounce response rate, which is how often we're sending questions back to our customers. Now, Trello is a great way to help visualize this. So I've set up labels, and I now add value measure labels to each of the cards and for which it is relevant. Here, I get an amazing visual representation of how my metrics are applied to my value chain. I want to focus initially on initial response time. And I want to focus on that because through some surveys and analysis that I've done, I am seeing a lot of dissatisfaction from our customers with how quickly we're able to respond to them once they submit an issue. So I want to really dial in and understand what work do we have already going on in that space, and how can I make broader impact for our transformation on how we respond more quickly to our customers. So if I filter on initial response rate, I can see a couple things. One is specifically where that hits across our value chain, and I can start to get a visualization of maybe where the type of work that I'm already doing is represented, and where I may have gaps in work that I should investigate and do more discovery upon. So for this example, we're going to look at our ticket prioritization. Now, there's some setup we did into this is mapping our labels into the prioritized ticket. We've attached a couple of user stories that we pulled from our past backlog of work. We've attached some different knowledge that is useful, and we have some tasks that my friends Phil and Kent have already completed. So as the leader, I need to go through and understand, are these user stories that we have in our backlog applicable for our transformation? Now, if I read our first user story here on the left, it talks really about a customer view of tickets for a support engineer. Now, this definitely feels like a priority for a customer. And so I can also see how this is an outcome focus because we're looking at serving that customer more holistically. So that makes sense. I'm going to leave that in here. Although I'm not 100% sure how that will make me respond to the customer more quickly, I can definitely see how it would provide a better support experience for our customers. So I can see the tie to our customer satisfaction, and I'm going to leave it in here for now. As I look into our second one, I see that we want to make sure that our tickets don't breach our SLAs, and that's generally a good thing. I definitely can understand how that would drive our initial response time metric. Because we can establish our initial response time goal, we can measure it and raise awareness in our queues by routing tickets that are breaching. So what we have here so far, though, is just our IT-related work that may be supportive of our transformation. Though having read these user stories, I realize there are a number of people and process related items that I need to sort through. So it can help uncover gaps in my thinking, namely, what is the operating model around SLAs? Are we going to have a separate SLA team that only manages tickets about to breach? Or if we have an account-based approach, such as in the first user story, how does that impact how we handle capacity for our large customers? So as you can see, doing this investigation, I've raised a number of things that I need to think through as far as how we operationalize and how we respond to the transformation that we're trying to accomplish. And I've now got a great tool to help me map in that type of work, do some discovery, and ultimately articulate how I'm going to deliver upon that value. So hopefully this is a good detailed example of how we put this into practice at Atlassian.
Thanks. I think that makes it feel real and tangible. And more importantly, easy to collaborate on. So I can see working with my team and going through backlog grooming and using this to anchor and focus us on what should be at the top of our backlog. But more importantly, going back to our original scenario, the next time I need to pitch something, I now have this shared context, this understanding of the business to ground my proposal in value. So the next time, maybe when I pitch it, they get it. And instead of the dreaded "so what," I get the "so when do we start?" If you would like to know more or also get started, you can join us at the Q&A on Atlassian community after this prezo. We've also made our Trello board public, so you can feel free, go there, copy it, make it your own. Go in, collaborate. Maybe you want to spin up an Agile Trello board while you're at it. Or maybe you want to start linking your value chain to your Jira project. Either way, there are many ways to map the value chain concept into the work you do on a day-to-day basis, and a way to make sure that when you pitch, it's been grounded in value, but also that value continues all the way through your development processes. So thanks again, and we hope to see you soon.